The village had transformed, with Arthur's golems handling the heavy lifting, hauling stone, and setting timber beams. The fox and rabbit folk were finally moving out of their mud huts into sturdy, well-structured homes. The new river, now the village's permanent heart, sparkled in the morning sun, though it remained a bitter reminder of Arthur's latest engineering mistake. Arthur sat amidst a graveyard of shattered stone pillars, rubbing his temples. He had tried a dozen variations, all meticulously inscribed with waterflow script Sora had taught him. Yet every attempt to create a simple fountain ended in a pressurized disaster. He destroyed each failure the moment it started to scream, terrified of flooding the village a second time. "Hi, Arthur. So what are you working on?" The voice was light, melodic, and unmistakable. Arthur froze, then turned to see Lori, standing just outside the village perimeter, looking as if she had simply strolled over for a casual visit. "Lori." Arthur blinked. "Should you be here? It's not even close to the week we agreed on." Lori flashed a sly, irrepressible grin. "The elders are all too busy arguing over whether you're a harbinger of doom or just a very strange miracle. I think you're good, so here I am. Besides," she winked, "they don't exactly know I'm here. So what's with all the rubble?" She pointed to the piles of pulverized stone. Arthur sighed and explained his pursuit of a simple fountain. To demonstrate, he quickly shaped a boulder into a slim pillar and hummed a low note of mana, inscribing the water script Sora had taught him. He did it with a speed and fluidity that made Lori's eyebrows shoot up. "Ready?" he asked. Lori, with a grin from ear to ear, nodded. That was already amazing. Arthur turned back to the pillar. He knew Sora's theory. That stone, unlike parchment, wouldn't hold a charge. But he wasn't looking for a conduit. He was looking for a vessel. He placed his palm against the rough granite and began to push. He opened the floodgates, pouring an immense, overwhelming amount of mana into the pillar. The stone groaned, vibrating violently as it struggled to reject the sheer intensity of his power. The pillar shrieked, then erupted into a violent, high-pressure geyser that drenched the entire square in a freezing, torrential rain before Arthur shattered the stone into dust with a sharp, panic flick of his will. "See." Arthur gestured to the surrounding debris, his chest heaving. "I tried to force it, and it just doesn't matter how much I throttle it. The stone just can't keep up." Lori tapped her chin, her expression thoughtful. "Have you tried Elven scripts?" Arthur paused. "There's a difference." Lori giggled. "Oh, a massive one. We taught your kind magic 1,000 years ago, but humans were never very good at it. That's why your conduits, those staffs and wands with mana stones, are so common. You needed tools to compensate for your limitations. And your scripts? You changed them to force magic to obey you, rather than flowing with it. That's why Sora's magic is so wild. She has an elven-sized well of mana, but she's trying to use human-sized triggers." She reached into her satchel and pulled out a leather-bound volume, holding it out toward the village center, where Sora was just approaching. "I brought this for her. Sora should be casting like us. She's rare, a human with elven-level capacity." Sora's voice cut through the air, sharp and guarded. "Why is she here?" Arthur quickly caught her up, his excitement evident. Lori stepped forward, offering the book. "This is for you, Sora. Read it. Study it. You'll probably still need your staff to keep your flow steady, but this should stop your magic from fighting you." Sora took the book, her fingers trembling slightly as she felt the texture of the ancient pages. She looked from Lori to Arthur, her expression softening into genuine gratitude. "Thank you." But then, her eyes darted to the piles of broken stone. "No elven scripts on the stone, Arthur. Look at the river. That was a weak spell." "Aw, come on." Lori groaned, elbowing Sora. "We could make a literal ocean. I vote yes." Sora fixed her with a stern, unwavering glare. "There are no votes. The answer is no." She turned to Arthur, her voice dropping to a command. "Arthur." Arthur held up his hands in surrender, smiling. "Fine. No elven scripts on the stone." "Well," Lori thought for a moment, "have you tried mana stones?" Arthur looked confused. "Yeah," Lori continued. "People use them to store mana and help cast spells." Sora cut in. "Like the one you overloaded and blew up." Lori jumped up. "What?" she exclaimed. Arthur looked defeated. Tell you later. About those stones. Arthur opened up his spatial storage and pulled a small blue glowing stone from the portal. I have a few of these. He held it up for Laurie to see. After many hours of back and forth, what Arthur and Laurie came up with was revolutionary. Arthur made another small pillar of stone, but this time he added a small spout at just the right height for washing hands, and above it, a small hole, with another hole leading down into the spout, just large enough to drop a small mana stone down. Now inside the workshop, Laurie and Sora watched as Arthur carved a water script onto a mana stone. That won't work without mana, Arthur. That mana stone is empty. Sora pointed to the stone Arthur was carving. It has to be, or this won't work. Arthur took the drained mana stone and placed it inside the hollowed-out hole above the spout. The second one needs mana, however, but no script. Arthur attached the charged mana stone onto a stick, just for testing. Arthur pushed the stick, mana stone first, into the hole. If natural stone is an insulator. He slowly pulled the stick. As he pulled the charged mana stone forward, it got within range of the uncharged stone, activating it. A steady flow of water started pouring from the spout. That's amazing, Arthur. So how do we turn it off? Arthur reached up and pushed the stick further into the hole, pushing the charged mana stone out of range, stopping the flow of mana to the water script, and thus cutting off the flow of water. Like this. Arthur gestured. Every house is going to have running water now. Arthur turned his attention back to Laurie, a thoughtful look in his eyes. There's one more thing I need to complete my indoor plumbing. Laurie blinked, her brow furrowing in genuine confusion. Plumbing. Sora immediately groaned, covering her face with her hands. He wants to go to the bathroom inside the house, Laurie. Like inside. Laurie recoiled, her expression shifting from confusion to mild disgust. Why? That sounds barbaric. Why would you want to keep that in your home? I don't know. Sora agreed, shaking her head. It's weird. I've told him it's weird, but he's adamant. Arthur, unable to take the judgment anymore, held up his hands. You'll see. Just let me show you. First, I need slimes. You live out here, Laurie. Can you show me where to find them? Laurie hesitated, clearly reluctant to assist in such a strange endeavor, but curiosity eventually won out. You can find them in the swamps. They're not far from here. Arthur's face lit up. Oh, I think I flew over that area the other day. I know exactly where it's at. Laurie's mouth dropped open. Flew. Sora chimes in with a dry, knowing tone. You'll get used to it. What? Laurie asked, bewildered. The flying. No. Sora responded, gesturing vaguely at Arthur. All of it. Arthur ignored the commentary and held out a hand to the elven princess. Here, take my hand. We'll be back in a jiff. Laurie reached out, her fingers brushing his, still trying to process the sheer absurdity of the man. Warp, Arthur said clearly. The air around them twisted, folding in on itself with a soft pop. Instantly, the dry, arid plateau vanished, replaced by the damp, humid air and thick vegetation of the nearby swamps. Arthur moved with practiced efficiency. He didn't waste time. He simply reached out and caught 5 or 6 slimes, encasing them in a compact, translucent barrier of magic that acted as a sturdy cage. There, that should do for the test, Arthur said, satisfied. He didn't give Laurie a moment to catch her breath. He gripped her hand again. The space around them warped, and a heartbeat later, they were back in the village square, right where they had started. Arthur had been preparing for this moment. Beneath the village ground, he had already laid stone pipes leading to all the houses. They all connected at a junction point just outside the settlement, where Arthur had erected a stone water tower atop a small, natural rise. Arthur led Sora and Laurie up the steps to the tower's basin. After climbing inside, he motioned for them to join him. This way. Once inside, Arthur walked up to a small, sealed barrow. He placed the charged mana stone inside and resealed it. He then positioned the empty mana stone, the one inscribed with the water script, at the bottom of the tower, using magic to form stone rings that held it firmly in place without fully encasing it. He attached the barrow to a string and lowered it near the empty mana stone, triggering the flow. "Let's step out," Arthur said. They watched from below as the basin filled. As the water level neared the top, the buoyant barrow rose with it, pulling the charged stone out of range. The flow of water ceased instantly, the script losing its power source. Laurie, as curious as ever, leaned in to inspect the mechanism. "Arthur, that doesn't look like your other stone pillars. A large pillar in every house seems a bit much," Arthur explained. "This central tower handles the pressure, and the pipes distribute it." He led them to the other side of the village, where he lifted 2 heavy wooden covers from a large, reinforced hole in the ground. It was partitioned into multiple chambers, a complex layout designed to filter waste before eventually leading the treated liquid out toward the river. Arthur opened his spatial storage and dumped the captured slimes into the primary chamber. Sora stared at the ground where the pipes were buried, then at the river, and finally at Arthur. She had come to expect the impossible from him, but the sheer, mundane utility of what he had just created, a sewage system fueled by swamp monsters, felt even more surreal than his meteor strikes. "You're a terrifying man, Arthur," she whispered, half joking, though her eyes were wide with genuine wonder. "You realize that, right?" Arthur just grinned, already mentally sketching out the next set of pipes. "I just like clean living, Sora. Now, let's see if the pressure holds." He wrinkled his nose, looking down at the squelching, amorphous creatures as they immediately began to consume the organic matter in the dark chamber. "Are you sure these aren't sentient?" he asked, his tone wavering between fascination and alarm. Laurie peered into the gloom, watching the slimes ripple and divide as they worked. She paused, then added with a questionable shrug, "Yeah, pretty sure." Arthur replaced the heavy wooden covers, locking the smell and the sight away. Arthur was ready to put both Sora and Laurie in their place, though he preferred to think of it as demonstrating the final phase. He led them to the bathroom facilities he had installed in one of the completed structures. To give them a familiar, refined feel, he had sourced high-quality clay, firing it until the sinks, toilets, and walk-in showers possessed a smooth, polished ceramic finish. "Each house has 2 pipes," Arthur explained, pointing to the elegant stone fixtures. "One pipe is carved with heating scripts, and I've embedded charged mana stones along the length of them to keep the water warm on demand." He gave them a quick, technical rundown on how to manipulate the flow, mixing the hot and cold streams to reach the perfect temperature. Sensing the awkwardness of the situation, he quickly excused himself. "I'll leave you 2 to try it out. The soap is on the basin." Arthur stepped out into the hallway and pulled the door shut behind him. He stood there for a moment, staring at the grain of the wooden door, waiting. A heartbeat later, a piercing scream echoed from inside the room. "Oh, that's amazing." Laurie's voice was high-pitched and breathless. Immediately after, Sora chimed in, her tone equally stunned. "It's so warm. I can't believe it." Arthur's face turned bright red, his heart hammering against his ribs. He winced, his mind immediately leaping to the wrong conclusion before he forcefully reined his thoughts in. "They're talking about the water," he told himself, closing his eyes and taking a deep, steadying breath. "Just the water. Keep your head on straight, Arthur." He shook his head, quickly walking outside into the fresh air to wait, trying to look as casual as possible while his ears continued to burn. Arthur had only a few days left before his formal meeting with the Elven Elders, and the village had become a hive of activity. Laurie had returned home to the glowing forest the night before, leaving Arthur to throw himself into the final stages of the village infrastructure. With Laurie gone, his mind buzzed with the possibilities of Mana Stone applications, magic communications, electricity, cars, and trains. But instead, every time he looked at the world around him, he felt a strange, nagging dissonance. This was a place where magic was abundant, yet society remained trapped in a primitive cycle. He remembered the dark history he had learned. The Demon Lord, once a champion fighting for a king, had been driven to cataclysmic vengeance after the senseless slaughter of his family. That betrayal had sparked a war that burned nations to the ground, pulling oppressed demihumans into the fray. Now, the Demon Lord existed as a force of nature, appearing every few hundred years to raise human civilization. While installing the final plumbing run in the last of the refugee houses, Arthur found himself distracted, his mind racing with possibilities. Powering the scripts in such a way gave heating pipes, soon electricity, and even more he thought. A familiar spark of ambition igniting in his chest. With enough thought and ingenuity, even cars can become a possibility. He always found it weird that this world was filled with such potent magic, yet lacked any real technological advancement. It was effectively a Middle Ages, but one saturated with the power to rewrite reality. He caught himself staring at a pile of discarded quartz-like stones, his mind already sketching out schematics that would make a 20th century engineer weep. He shook his head, forcing his focus back to the task at hand. One step at a time. The plumbing was a success, and the village was finally starting to look like a place where people could actually live rather than just survive. He set his tools aside, watching the manastone lamps flicker with a soft, steady hum. He knew the elven elders would arrive soon, and they would see his work for what it was, a fundamental violation of the world's status quo. He didn't care. As far as he was concerned, this wasn't about power or politics. It was about finally building something that lasted. The day of the meeting finally dawned. Arthur met Sora by the river, his expression focused as he prepared for the journey. "It looks good." Arthur pointing to her new clothing. "Thanks, but was the hat necessary?" Arthur had picked up some new clothing, and Sora being a mage and all. Arthur smiled. It seemed appropriate. He said, with a single, succinct word, "Warp." The world folded around them, and they arrived instantly at the designated clearing in the glowing forest. The three elven elders were already waiting, their presence radiating an ancient, cold authority. Nimra stood beside them, her posture guarded. As soon as Arthur appeared, Lori broke from the group, rushing toward him with childlike fervor and latching onto his arm. Sora's eyes narrowed instantly. She stepped forward, firmly prying Lori's hands from Arthur. "Can't you wait even 5 seconds?" she exclaimed, shooting a sharp, exasperated look at the princess. One of the elders stepped forward, his voice measured and thin. "We have agreed to visit your settlement. Once we witness exactly what you are doing, we will decide whether to aid your endeavor or ignore it entirely." Nimra moved closer, her gaze intense. "We are under no illusion that we could win a fight against you," she stated bluntly. "Whatever our final decision, we will not interfere with you or your village." "Thanks," Arthur replied, his tone neutral. "Though, to be clear, it's not exactly my village. I'm just building a place for demi-human refugees." Nimra tilted her head, her expression flickering with genuine confusion. "Even weirder," she muttered. Arthur gestured for the group of 5, Lori, Nimra, and the 3 elders, to gather around him. Sora looked at him, her brow furrowed in uncertainty. "Don't you need to hold our hands?" she asked, her voice dropping. Arthur felt a flush of embarrassment, looking down at his feet. "No, not really," he admitted, feeling the absurdity of the situation. Lori, sensing his hesitation, didn't hesitate. She stepped forward and firmly grasped his hand. "That's okay," she said with a bright, defiant smile. "Now I'm ready." Not to be outdone, Sora immediately stepped in to claim his other hand. "I'm ready too," she declared, her eyes darting toward Lori. Arthur let out a soft, resigned sigh. Warp. The forest dissolved into a blur of light and displacement, and in a heartbeat, the group materialized in the center of the bustling refugee village. The air and colors twisted back into shape, and the group materialized in the heart of the village. The elders, braced for the sight of squalid, desperate hovels, stood momentarily frozen. Instead of a ruin, they were greeted by a thriving, orderly settlement. 10 sturdy houses stood in neat rows, perfectly complemented by the man-made river that cut a crisp, white stone channel through the village center. Arthur had taken a secret trip to the capital, Etherport, to sell surplus monster materials, transforming the refugees' rags into respectable, clean clothing, a detail that clearly caught the elders off guard. One of the elders pointed a slender finger toward the stone water tower. "What does this stone sculpture represent?" he asked, his tone skeptical. "It's easier to show you," Arthur replied. As Arthur and Sora led the group on a tour, they were intercepted by Evie, a young fox girl. Eager to display her pride, she offered to show them inside her home. The skeptical elder knelt slightly, peering at the child. "Don't you care that a human runs this place?" he asked, his voice sharp. Evie didn't hesitate. She snapped back, "No. Arthur saved us and built all this for us." She pointed to the river, their homes, and her own clean clothes. "He gave us all this and didn't ask for anything back." She ushered them inside, proudly demonstrating the furniture, the soft bedding, and the indoor plumbing. "Every house has these," she explained, turning the tap on and off, her eyes still sparkling with wonder at the feat. The visit progressed better than Arthur had dared hope. By the time they finished, the elders' initial hostility had evaporated, replaced by a cautious, grudging respect. Nimra, who had been the most guarded of the bunch, actually looked relaxed. They agreed to let Arthur harvest what he needed and hinted at a future of trade. Arthur warped the group back to the glowing forest without a single incident. A week later, while Arthur was hunched over a workbench, obsessively sketching diagrams for a mana-based generator, he heard a familiar, melodic voice cut through his concentration. "Arthur!" He looked up, his jaw dropping. Lori was standing in the doorway. Lori motioned for Arthur to meet her outside. She had something to show him, and she wasn't alone. A large group of elves trailed behind her, each carrying supplies and looking intensely out of place in the plains. "I've decided, Arthur," Lori stated, beaming. "I'm going to join your village and become a citizen. My parents insisted on guards, so these guys are going to join me. I told them if they tag along, they had to join too. So here we are." Lori's face was gleaming with excitement as she gestured to her entourage. "So, do we get houses with running water too?" Arthur stood there, completely stunned, his mind reeling. Guards, his village, citizen, the logistics and the sheer political fallout of an elven princess defecting to his refugee settlement hit him all at once. He looked from Lori to the 20 battle-ready elves behind her, wondering if he had just accidentally started a diplomatic crisis or the most bizarre town expansion in history. If you enjoy these stories, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help this channel grow so I can continue to improve and provide a wide variety of stories. Thanks for watching.